There are roughly 119,740,000 kilometers between the planets Venus and Mars.
Somewhere in the middle lies Earth.
That's one small step for man,
That's a gaslighter.
Love bombing.
Narcissist. Homemaker.
Deal breaker.
one giant leap for mankind.
If he wanted to, he would. 5 signs of avoidant attachment.
You wouldn't consider men and women equal.
Is broken.
Houston, we had a problem.
Join us in the space between Venus and Mars. Hello, welcome back to the space between Venus and Mars. I'm Jessie.
I'm Chris.
Today we have a very special episode.
It's our 10th episode.
It is our 10th episode. We're officially in the double digits. So that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
We have a very special guest today. My dear, dear friend Paul is with us. And he is a great friend of mine. He is like an uncle to me. I've known him for...
Wow, everyone. Like an uncle, a dear friend of mine who's so old that he's an uncle to me. Love it. Mwah. No notes, everyone. No notes.
No, you are an uncular figure in my life.
That sounds so much worse.
That sounds so worse. Like, he's my friend. He gives a big uncle energy.
But you do, though.
Sure, no, I accept it. I'll own it.
Okay. So yeah, Paul, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your marriage, how long have you been married, and all that?
Yeah, so I have been married for 25 years, April 8th this year. We got married in 2001. We had dated between us dating and getting married was about 4 months. And we stayed together since. Like, I think it's a pretty good marriage, but like if you have my wife B on here, she may say otherwise.
Wow, okay.
Okay.
We wanted to bring you on because, first of all, you're just like such anybody who knows you knows that you're like such an interesting person.
That is true. So true. Like and so modest I am too. So
you have so many thoughts and opinions about so many things, specifically gender too, like gender
Sure.
and
relationships,
relationship dynamics. You love to read people.
That is a thing that I enjoy doing.
I don't know if we'll keep this in here, but I do remember. I remember when I first met Paul. I was in college, and he like looked at this girl's Instagram, and he like read her Instagram like a tarot card reading, and he was like, you know what? Based off of these photos, I don't think you like your boyfriend. I don't think you're in love with him. And she broke up with him.
I think it went like this. I was trying to impress the crew, so I was reading people's Instagrams.
Yeah.
And she gives me hers, and I go through it, and I go like, oh, from these photos, it seems to me that you're kind of lonely. And then someone goes, she has a boyfriend. And I go, do you like him?
Mm-hmm.
And then apparently X weeks.
I really think it was, less than a few months later, to be honest.
Wow.
And
she broke up with him.
Sure.
She broke up with him.
I
yeah.
didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
But
So the influence he wields, right? Right.
Sure. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So we wanted to have you on this episode specifically because you have been married for 25 years. And also, I know both of you very well, like you and your wife, and you guys have gone through some like really interesting challenges and really interesting peaks and valleys of your marriage, and also for your perspective. But this episode is called Easy Work ? And basically, we just wanted to talk to you about like the different expectations people have of like relationships. And I have this sense of like when I'm on the socials and like scrolling through things and like reading comments. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is just my perception of things, but it just feels like, and watching Love is Blind.
Love is Blind is it's the only way to get married nowadays.
Right, right.
Seriously.
And like just seeing like how the threshold for the eject button seems to
Mm.
be different now.
Interesting. So I'll just talk about my how my relationship
Yeah.
started, and then we can maybe find some places to go from there.
Yeah, yeah.
So I knew my wife from a swing dancing class for about maybe a year and a half, 2 years. Not that we hung out or anything. We weren't friends. We were like people who were in a class together. And ultimately, it's a long story that I would spend like, an hour and a half telling people over dinner. But ultimately, we wound up dating for a bit. And she really didn't like me for the first month. She was always on the verge of like breaking up with me.
Mm.
And then we had a very, I say this all the time. I go, this is the one time that I actively lied to my wife to get something. I said,
Okay,
Mm.
interesting.
I said to her, I like where we are right now. Like we can both be happy together and separate. Like in most of my relationships are codependent,
Sure.
and
Okay.
and I really like the fact that we can not be that way, and then I ended it with like, yeah, but if you ever want to like end it, you just tell me quickly because I've never seen a relationship with a slow breakup where the people remain friends, and I kind of like you, and so I thought we should probably stay friends if that were the case.
Mm.
Okay.
And unbeknownst to me, like she had been the way that she describes it is a serial monogamous for most of her life. Like, oh, I'm go from one relationship to the next to the next, and she was always worried about breaking someone. Like, I'm gonna break up with you, and then you're gonna be devastated for a year because blah blah blah. And I don't want to deal with that. So
She was always worried about that?
yeah, she had a string of relationships where people really fell for her hard,
Oh,
and then like
interesting.
she was not into them as much as they were into her. And so from that, like me saying that kind of gave her that like, oh, I don't have to worry about him. He's gonna be fine. And so that
Mm.
Mm.
kind of opened up some things like that. And then we moved very quickly after that. For the fact that like I was actually moving to Australia in like say say by January. I was moving to Australia in April. And we kind of both knew that it was going to be a short-term relationship
Oh, okay.
25 years later.
Yeah.
Right.
but like but the idea of having an expiration date was appealing for both of us.
I see. Do you think that, well, I guess this is something that like maybe you would have to ask your wife, but do you think that maybe you relieving that pressure kind of like opened up the door for kind of the release of expectation for her of like hurting someone kind of even opened up more? You know what I
I
mean?
would say I don't know if I would even be considered if not for the fact that
You
like
said that?
I'm guessing I don't think I would be considered as a person that she would date if not for the fact that I was going to be leaving in 4
Oh,
months.
Wow.
I'm
Okay.
a lot shorter than her. Like I'm 5'10", but like she usually dates people who are like plus. I'm the first Asian person she's ever dated.
Mm.
oh yeah.
So there was just a lot of things that were very different.
Also, it's worth noting too, like you grow up in Southern California, like a kind of a bigger, higher populated dense area,
Yep.
and she's a Midwestern girl, kind
Yeah.
of like grew up
Mm.
kind of cornfield country a
Yeah.
little
Like she
bit.
Terre Haute, Indiana.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it wound up working out. Like
Yeah.
her mom thought she was in a cult when she decided to get married and tell her, hey, I'm getting married in 2 months. And she goes, oh, are you in a cult? Do we need to come get you?
Oh no.
Wow.
And
Oh,
my
wow.
mom just said, no, it's too soon. I go, well, you don't get to say.
How old were you at the time?
I was 27,
Okay.
28, 27, 28,
Okay.
around
And
there,
the year was?
2001.
Okay.
Mm.
So that was before 9/11?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it was a very interesting thing. Like the way that I express how our thought process was, and you'd have to ask her, but we had dated enough to know what we didn't want.
Mm. Mhm.
And I think the way that I see it nowadays, like you get one ask. You get if you're making, let's say, dating someone's like making a meal or whatever, you get one premium ingredient. And that premium ingredient is not what everyone thinks it is. Like, sometimes people are like, I need someone who is like really tall or like makes a lot of money or really fun or it rarely is like those basic things. Those things are actually self-filtering. You'll find, you'll get those regardless.
Mm.
But I went in with the idea of like I needed someone who can argue with me without making it personal to them.
Mm.
Like I needed someone who was like, because I'm a difficult person, and people are gonna get
Mhm.
into fights with me. But if they make it personal, then we're not fighting about the issue. We're fighting about, dynamics, and
Mm.
that's not interesting to me. And eventually, and for all of it, I tend to win, and so they get really mad.
Well,
uh,
depends on who you
that's right.
ask.
That's a great way of saying it. Like
Yeah.
and I've been told before, just because you win the fight doesn't mean you were right, Paul. And I go, that's exactly what it means, But
Right.
but I've developed as I've grown older.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
She would say that she needed someone who was self-sustaining enough that when she had to go away, like in her little closet because she's an introvert and she had to just not be around people for a while,
Mm.
that when she came back, she would not be punished. And
Mm.
and so like she basically needed someone who was going to be able to carry themselves self-sufficiently. Kind of, I guess that's what anyway. And those two things were the premium ingredients that we picked for each other,
Okay.
or from each other. So like, and that worked out.
Can I ask you something though
Yeah,
about,
sure.
because you said this moment when you said this to her was the only time you lied to her.
Uh-huh.
So were you lying about the part of you're okay on your own, or that you're okay with her ending things?
She wasn't treating me the greatest when deciding whether she wanted to date with me the first month. Like it was
Mm.
back and forth, hot, cold. Basically, it was a kind of a gaslighting because we'd have a great date, and then the next date we were like, "Oh, did I just make that up in my head?" And then
Oh, go back to zero.
or negative, like you're like,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, does she want to be here?"
Oh, negative.
I go like, "Oh, did I do something?" Like, I didn't I didn't understand what was happening, and so I just thought that she was like really, she was trying to be polite,
Mm, mm.
and I don't need someone to stay with me to be out of politeness. That just sounds like weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So eventually, what it came down to was our birthdays are in December. I got her a Star Trek action figure, which tells you that we're nerds.
Mhm.
And she was afraid that I spent a lot of money on it. And then the next 4 days later was my birthday, and there was a miscommunication about who would pay for the bowling lanes. And I had made an assumption that she was getting it because she said I got it, but like she meant I got it and people can pay me back, as opposed to I got it, don't worry about it. And so she was pissed off about how frivolous I was with her money because of a
Mm.
misunderstanding.
Okay.
And so eventually what happened in January after that one lie that I said, they had offered a Subway sandwich for dinner, like a big 7-foot sub. And I go, I don't know, I want to get sushi. And we're driving. And as we're driving, she gets all quiet again. And like she's, like hot, cold kind of thing. And then eventually she just lays into me. She just yells at me. She goes like, I have a mortgage. I can't be spending all this money to going out and eat. I mean, I really like you, Paul, but like if we're going to wind up being like, I just can't do this. And I just smiled. I was just smiling because I go, I did it. I broke through.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
because,
Right.
be-
Right.
because like she's so polite that if I knew that if she was yelling at me, she really liked me.
Right.
Mhm.
So
The guards were down.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting.
Mm.
I don't think we've ever solved that frivolous with food money
Right. Right.
25 years later, but like we're still here.
I mean, yeah.
But yeah, that's me and my marriage, how it started.
I want to go back to like the secret ingredient of it all because I think that's actually really interesting because so many people are like looking for that one thing where it's like, oh, he needs to be tall enough, he needs to make
Mhm.
this much money,
Yeah,
and it's like whatever the list, right? We talk about that a lot on this show. But like, did you know what that secret ingredient was, or did it just, oh, you were attracted to this person and then it kind of revealed itself over time and you were like, oh, that's actually the thing that I needed and not that I wanted, sort of thing,
I think I knew. I think like, for the longest time, I would date women who are like my mom and
Yeah.
who were emotional and fun to be with and ultimately unsustainable
Mm.
because again, fighting. And ultimately, she wanted to be with someone who wasn't her dad, which was always like being needed to serve. Like, just someone had to carry his emotional weight for him. And so I think we both kind of knew that. The way that she described it is like it's the leasing a car metaphor, where you lease a car, it's exactly what you want, and then when the lease is up, you don't buy that car. You buy another car that's basically exactly like it, except for like different seats or a different cup holder, like the one thing that you want to change.
Mm.
And so she kind of knew, I think, that what she wanted, maybe not able to express it verbally, but like it wasn't that it developed. I think she knew that she wanted someone self-sustaining. And I wanted someone who wasn't overly emotional to the point where they would sacrifice the relationship to be right.
So you really knew all this at 27?
Yeah. But like
Really?
but here's the difference. Like back then, like in the aughts, like relationships were simpler. Like the metrics were much simpler.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like it's I think I look like I'm always very fascinated about how people are dating and like today, because it's like I would at 21 through my 20s I would not be able to do very well because
If you were dating now.
yeah
Yeah.
because you're carrying so much.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's all these requirements that like weren't really there before, because I think in the end relationships were more off the rack. Like, you know, like
Sure.
the script you had, like you were like, oh, I'm going to be this person and I'm going to be this person and we'll see if these fit. And nowadays it's more bespoke in a way that I don't know if people are good enough tailors to bespoke it that well.
Sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Most people.
Yeah. I think en masse, what happens is like people are given like this really advanced task of deciding who they are, how they want to interact with people, and in their marriage, you know, situation, and they don't know. They don't really
Yeah.
know. And so like
Mhm.
you're trying to do all these things simultaneously while not. It's like trying to go through a maze blindfolded.
Mm.
Yeah.
And all you have is like various people going this way, this way, this way, this way, and it's like that is not. How can you get perspective?
Right.
So
Right.
because I
Yeah.
didn't have that, like, you know, I could go like, oh, I've dated, here it is, like, you know, and then oh, here's what I want. And so
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to. It's like ordering a pizza back then, where you go like, oh, I want pepperoni, I don't want pepperoni, as opposed to nowadays you go like, oh, I want the flour from Milan, and like, you know, like I want this
Yeah.
cheese for like it's just it's so much. I don't know if it's too much. I know people get married and find someone, but like even then I find the people who wind up doing that nowadays have a much more simplistic view of like what, you know, gender roles and what they want out of the relationship are. Like the more complicated people make it at, you know, at 20, and you know, like it's really tough. I have a lot of sympathy for that.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes, I was that wise, Jesse, even at 20.
Here we go. Here we go.
I think a big thing that's changed a lot is like just timelines. And like
Mhm.
obviously you guys moved really fast.
Sure.
Do you think there was some confidence that came from well, we'll be okay if this doesn't work out? Or was there some kind of what do you think was the juice that kind of helped fuel like jumping into something in that bold of a way?
I think ultimately we were both at a state in our lives where we go, here's my life. I know what my life is. Do I want more? Sure. So I think we both, whether consciously or unconsciously, and this is something that was weird because B is not a person who's impulsive generally. We're both like, oh, I know that what I have now is not enough.
Mm.
So knowing that this is not enough, climbing up this ladder is only going to take me to the wrong direction. So I need to jump to something else. And so for me, I was moving to Australia. My job had a wing there, so I was going to move. And she was like, oh, well, I guess I could go. First thought, like, oh, he's going to leave, so I don't have to deal with breaking up with him.
Mm.
But eventually it was like, oh, well, he's good enough that I will go out with him. And then we moved to Australia, in the middle of Australia, Alice Springs, Australia. And that's when we really learned about ourselves. Like, I think I say all the time that if we had stayed in LA, we would not have gotten married.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't because that it wouldn't work, because obviously it has.
Yeah.
It's because in LA, we have enough infrastructure back then that we didn't need to rely on each other. Whereas in Australia, we had ourselves and we had to just work it out. And in that way, you get to the annoying conversations quickly and you get past them, rather than like, oh, here's this annoying thing and I'm going to let it fester for 5 years because I can go hang out with my friends and not deal with it and ignore it for a bit. And so in that way, we made our foundation pretty strong that way.
Yeah, it was sort of like a boot camp.
Yeah.
Like it was like, okay, well, you're thrown
Forged
in the
in
trench.
fire kind of
Yeah,
thing.
forged in the fire, like
Yeah.
early on.
I mean, it's a really weird thing, right? Where you have to decide to build a life with someone because, that's what you've picked. And if your foundations are still rooted in yourselves as opposed to together, it's like having two foundations for a building. It doesn't seem quite right. And like when the earthquake comes or whatever, it's not going to really work out the way you hope.
Mm.
So like there really is this idea of like melding your foundations.
Right. And in your theory, do you think that has to be done in the immediate?
I've seen a lot of codependent relationships where people wind
Sure.
up just relying on each other. And ultimately, those foundations tend to not have all the ingredients necessary for longevity. When you have two independent people together, if they stay independent, you wind up having two separate lives, like mingled back and forth, but like it can easily be split. Ultimately, what you kind of want is like this interdependence where 1 and 1 equals 5. And that requires you guys to come. Here's all the stuff that I have. Here's all the stuff that you have. And here is us, just building it from the ground floor, sort of. And the more that this is my opinion, I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
the more you rely on your infrastructure that isn't the foundation you're building, the more risk you have of basically putting some important things that you might have on other people rather than the one that you should probably be leaving that for. Now, I do feel like it works out for me and be this way, but like I do feel that like one person can't be everything to you. Like
Right.
one of the reasons why our relationship works out is because I'm an extrovert. Now she used to date extroverts, but those extroverts would just kind of wait for her to like come out with me and blah
yeah,
blah blah.
they
blah.
would like punish her if she wasn't meeting the standard of the extroverted.
Whereas I go like, oh, I'm so extroverted that like if you can't hang, girl, I'm just gonna find someone else.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of friends that I can offload that the friendship part with. But that's me. Like people have different needs. Everyone has different needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you think the line is of like what those things are that you're outsourcing or like that you're taking out of the relationship that
Like,
can be detrimental to it?
Things that don't bother me is the fact that I go out to eat with other people,
Sure.
like men or women.
Mhm.
But I grew up in a restaurant, so like a lot of my socialization is over restaurant food.
Mhm.
And she grew up at a home that cooked meals every night. So that's her preference.
Mm.
Rather than force her to adapt to me or me adapt to her, we've allowed that to just keep separate. But imagine if you're in an argument with your significant other and you go to your friends and ask them, hey, like, what should I do?
Yeah. Sure.
Very few friends would say, oh, you're at fault.
Sure.
Yeah.
Most people would say like, oh, like, you have a point or blah, blah, blah. But they're your friends. They're going to give you advice that they want you to hear. They're like basically AI.
Sure. Yeah.
And so,
Right.
but like, that isn't necessarily going to make a stronger relationship. Like it's a rare person to say that like, oh no, you're at fault, or at least you're complicit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And especially nowadays, like everyone is so afraid of like hurting everyone's feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
It's very hard to find confrontation with
Yeah.
friends that's like actually healthy.
Yeah, like and
Yeah.
so that's why moving to Australia, forcing us to deal with each other,
Mhm.
was really helpful.
Right. Because you weren't going to like your boys and
Mhm.
like blowing
100%.
off steam or whatever.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I will say this, and I say this a lot because it really needs to be said, is like when people ask me, what's the secret for staying together for 25 years? And the answer is luck. It's not I put in the
You have
work.
said that. You did say this
Yeah.
the other day, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh,
No, but it is this. The truism is that like I put in a lot of work to my relationship. But like there are people who've put in more work
right,
and didn't survive. It's
Right.
because like we've dealt with a lot of things. We've dealt with cancer, infertility.
Yeah.
Like me just being me. All these things are like really hurricanes. And we just happen to develop strategies and infrastructure to be able to deal with them.
yeah,
But like I can tell you that there's a wave out there ready to hit that I'm not prepared for.
right,
And so like if that hits me, like, did I fail at my marriage? It's like, you can't do everything.
yeah,
So you need to put in the work, but you have to get lucky too.
yeah,
I think people put a lot of pressure on themselves to like be, oh, I failed, blah, blah, blah. And it goes, yeah, but you're complicit. You don't have complete control though.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so much of too of what I'm hearing in your story as well is just like how clearly you each can see each other.
Well,
You know what I mean? Like it isn't so much like, oh, like how I see you, how I want to see you, like how I see you, how you are.
I personally believe, like, one of the things that when I see a person give, here are the things that I need from
Yeah.
my part, I go like, ugh, that you have some developing to do, because ultimately, like, people want the same thing. Men, women want the same thing, and this is overgeneralizing. I apologize, but they want to feel connected. But most people feel most connected when a person sees them for their person who they are and the person who they could become. Jen
Yeah.
Maguire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that's especially true for men too, like how they want to be
Like,
viewed by women, I think.
like
Yeah.
most people in the masculine mode want their significant other to see them as the most amazing person ever and a little baby simultaneously.
Yeah.
And in that way, most people have a hard time carrying that paradox and expressing that paradox in a way that people feel genuinely loved. The real answer is like, you have to know in context when to express the things that you need.
Right.
But you have to be able to understand that totality. I feel like people in the feminine mode really just wants people to see them like, like in this version of like, oh, you are enough. Like everyone wants to be enough.
Yeah.
It's the Twilight thing. Like, Bella, she's so great, but because I don't know what Bella has, here she's,
What do you mean? She's got a rock star personality.
but that's the dream, right? The dream is like, I am enough. I don't have to change, and I am worthy of
Right.
getting the attention of like the protagonist or whatever. And
Right.
and that's fine. But there's also a bit of like going, okay, how much of that can I really expect? Like, because a relationship requires effort. And I think a lot of today, when I see like the manosphere and the femisphere, is basically, you're supposed to change, not me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
And
talk
it's
about
just,
that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
hugging the walls, basically.
And it's like, oh, you misunderstand. Like, you think that loving is when someone makes you feel a certain way. And I go like, no, like when you're in a relationship, loving is like when you want to do stuff for the other person because of who they are.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and you want to, like, I say this a lot to people, and I don't know if goes on deaf ears or whatever. I go like, the only way you're really going to be happy in a relationship, in life actually, is if you're serving. It doesn't sound great. It sounds like lame. It sounds like giving up power, but it's the truism of like, a guy wants nothing more than to serve the person in the feminine mode, with one caveat: they have to be worthy of it. They have to be worthy of that service.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you're dating someone, like, ultimately, whether you realize or not, you're kind of deciding whether they're worthy of your service.
Yeah. And also, like, I think one thing too I've been ruminating on as well. It's like worthy of the service, not because of what they do for you, but because of who they are as
Exactly.
well. Like, it's not like, oh, I love you because you do all these things. I love you because of just like you existing how
Because
you
your
are.
persona is worth me serving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's hard for a lot of people, because the idea of service really is viewed negatively in today's day and age.
Well, it's been so exploited, I feel like. I mean, the way that also too we have, like, we talk about this too, like union under the patriarchy, right? Like that has
Sure.
been rooted in so much possession, and women feel so burdened by the expectations of all that. And it's hard because I think, especially for women, they've had to choose so that they can just, like, it isn't finding a man because of how much they love him for who he is, but of like what he can provide.
Mhm.
And those are different intentions, kind of, right? Like heart postures,
Like,
maybe.
yes. I mean, I think
Mm.
a man, like all that he can provide and blah, 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 all that stuff is part of that worthiness that I think people in the feminine mode,
Yeah.
and that is to a point. But like once, they meet that threshold, you kind of then throw it all out because, oh, this is the person. And now,
Yeah.
and now you're in service to the person, not not the attributes of the person.
That's
Mm,
so
mm.
hard though. Like that's so
Is it?
like well no, I mean, well it's like it's what Celine Song says.
Mhm.
I remember in one interview for Modern Love for the New York Times, she was promoting the Materialists and she was like, yeah, the easiest thing is falling in love. Like whatever, because you just like somebody just for their attributes, but then society's like, oh, but they can't provide or they can't
Mhm.
this or they don't fit the list of all these things
Sure.
that you wanted, but you're like, oh, but you like who they are. It's like I feel like we're all kind of caught in these, like, at least the girlies that I know are really caught between
Oh,
this
I do like
struggle. I don't know.
I do feel it's really hard because there's a lot of messaging, that
Right.
is really designed to make you feel alone. It makes you
Yeah.
feel hopeless.
Right.
It's within the capitalist incentive to go like, oh, you don't have this thing. Let me give you something that will approximate this thing, and you have to keep on coming back to me. So like it doesn't. You don't need love advice when you're in love. When you have a good relationship, you don't need that
Right.
advice. So it's sort of like, like all this stuff. The more I say to you, oh, women just want you for your money. You need to find someone who like obeys and blah, blah, blah. That speaks to a person who goes like, oh man, yeah, I don't have to change.
Yeah.
I don't have to change. And you go like, oh, guys just, they need to do X, Y, Z, blah, 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 blah. You are the table. I love that line. You are the table. I go, what does that mean? But
I don't know. What does that mean?
Oh no, like
Where is this from?
in my Femisphere exploits, like someone will say you'll need to bring this to the table.
Oh, okay.
Sure, sure,
And then the guy will go, well, sure, but what do you bring? He goes, I am the table. And I'm going
Oh.
like, that is not as cool sounding as you think it is.
Well, yeah, we
Yeah.
didn't even know what it meant.
The way I understand it, it comes from this idea of like in the feminine mode, the ideal version of it, the paragon of it is like, oh, I'm worthy of being pursued. I am the goal. And so in this, the I am the table, like, oh, like you had to bring all this stuff in order to get me. And
Yeah.
but the idea also is like not everyone is a good table. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
eventually metaphors fall apart, and ultimately like you just have to see people as they are, which is like, someone trying to find connection.
Yeah.
And I think we might have tools and like ways of thinking to help us approach that, but once you have those tools as your laws in your brain, that's a bad thing. Because like it's like crutches. Like crutches will help you walk when you're busted, but like if you stay on those crutches, it's just going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so all this information that we have is good to a point, but at some point you have to make your own decisions as far as like, oh, here's what I want. Here's the person who I am. I think that the difference between nowadays, like 20 years ago or 25 years ago, and today is like there was more of a push for people to have ownership of their personhood than there is now.
Interesting.
Partly because today that personhood is so expansive. You have to have so much opinions about so many different things at once. That's the expectation. Whereas, I had no real care about the patriarchy at the year 2000. Like, this is the way it was. And, we guys kind of did it and we lived our lives in that paradigm.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to spend energy thinking about that. Like I've had people who had listed, oh, I want a guy who fights the patriarchy, but like blah, 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 blah.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
And I'm going like, sure, but the stuff that you want to do kind of like sounds like you want the advantages, what few advantages you had in the patriarchy. You want those too. And you want this guy to do, it's all problematic to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
what I'm hearing also is like the whole idea of like you developing yourself within this time is happening in the same space digitally as all of these voices you're
100%.
hearing.
Yeah.
So it's just you're adding to a course. You feel even more insignificant. You feel even less like worthy when you're in that suit
100%.
of it all.
100%. Like, it's tough. It's rough. Like I really feel for people who are trying to make it in this space right now. I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of why we have relationships like marriage and stuff like that. And it's not to make you happy. It's so that society can grow. That's the purpose of marriage. Is to like basically create a building block so that society can scale. And like, and here's the ugly, dark part of it is like, and that's why patriarchy works, because it scales. That's why capitalism works, because it scales. In fact, they are such that they scale faster than most other perspectives, and that's why people like them. And the other advantage of those systems are like stupid people can apply them. Like, you don't have to think too hard. You can just go, hey, here it is. Just do this, follow these rules, and like right now we're in a place where we're discussing things that are actually really complicated. And people who don't want to spend that mental energy can't apply them. So from their standpoint, they go like, oh, well, I don't want to do this. Let's just go back to simple. You see these memes all the time where like there's the right answer and there's right but complicated, simple but easy. And you see this long line of people who want the simple but easy and wrong, and the person who wants the complicated thing. And like, I think it's better to have simple and a little bit off, and then as you level up in your ability to deal with relationships, like become more and more nuanced. I think that's a better way of approaching relationships than trying to get everything and be perfect by 35. Because again, scalability, and and sometimes you have to learn on the job versus like do everything kind of like study and play at it. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm
Yeah. No. I totally get it. But I also I think back to what you said earlier about like, oh, how has my marriage lasted 25 years? And you're like, well, it's just luck. And it's like,
no, a big, like what's the one, the secret is luck.
yeah.
I put work in.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like you're, even just, and I think even your wife just being so introverted and you just being so extroverted, like even just off the bat, people would say like, well, that's not going to work,
No, sure. Like, I don't think when people see us initially, you go like, oh, that's a combo I would think of. It's like a peanut butter and banana sandwich. You're like,
peanut butter bananas.
Wait, peanut butter and banana sandwich is delicious.
They are, but like, if you were to tell someone, that before they've had it, like they go, and I am delicious. My wife and I, we're the. But like it's one of those things where like we are very different.
Yeah.
But one thing that we do have, that we do very well with is like honesty. We love our relationship. I think, and without being immodest, like I think my relationship is enviable. But there's more to life than just the relationship.
Of course. Yeah. And I think that's too where I'm like, that's where you and B like really succeed, I think. And like you've able to expand yourself like in your personhood beyond what this is. And that goes back to what you were saying, like 1 + 1 = 5.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like so much greater than the sum of its parts. And like I think that's the greater part. It's not like even just the relationship, but it's like even the parts of yourselves that have grown that have nothing to do kind of with the relationship, so to speak, but like outside. But it was because of like
100%.
the kindling of, or just like the burning fire of what you two have that like keeps growing like yourselves.
I love to ask people all the time, like, why do you want a relationship? Like if you want a relationship, why do you want it?
Right.
What's the goal? A lot of people they don't even have an answer. It's some version of like, why wouldn't I? Or like that's just what people do, kind of
Well,
thing.
I'm sure some people say like to have kids, no?
Sure, that's a thing, but it's so like you don't need to be in a relationship to have kids,
Mm.
right? I mean,
Sure.
unless you say like, oh, but I need the money, I need the resources to have kids, so I'm going to find some person to
Mhm.
either bear my kids or pay so I can have my kids,
Mm.
and that doesn't feel very like connected to a person. That feels like that person is a tool so you can achieve a goal of yours.
Yeah.
Sure.
So really, like, why do you want a relationship? Like for me, it was like, oh, because I have a lot of love to give, and I don't know where to spend it, and I want to give it to someone, and then ultimately, I want to give it to someone worthy. And
Mm.
that I think is pretty simple for me. Everyone could have a different answer, but like it just wound up being like, oh, the burden of having extra love is not great, so I just want to expend it,
Okay.
And I think when in a marriage, like they go like, oh, why do you want kids? And a less great answer is because that's what the script says.
Mm.
But like,
Right.
but
Was
like,
that what you wanted the whole time? Like that's been your reason all 25 years? You feel like it's changed at all?
like I wanted kids. Like we weren't able to have kids.
Sure.
And ultimately, like I wanted a relationship because, as cynical as I may sound, I'm pretty much romantic. I go like, oh, like this person, there's a hole in me. This person is going to fill those holes, and I'm going to be a better person. Blah blah blah. And for the most part, kind of worked out.
Mm.
Yeah.
I worked at it, and I come back with that theme. You have to work at it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel like it's a goal, like buying a painting. Oh well, okay, I bought this relationship. Now I can just not change and not do anything. It's not that way.
Like I've gotten married. I don't. It's all done now.
I
Like
found the right
scaled the
person.
mountain. You know.
Like I say to people all the time, and Jesse's heard this. Like when you're thinking about getting married, you have to ask yourself two questions. The first question is, can you do better? And the answer needs to be yes.
You can always do better.
You can always do better, because otherwise you're not really in a relationship.
Mm.
You're in a place where like, oh, I've stolen the best thing I could get in the universe, and this is
Right.
it's a bad power dynamic to go into.
Sure.
The next question is actually the question that I find the most interesting, and where most people fail. And it's like, do you need better?
Mm.
Because if the answer is no, then you should just get married. A lot of people are worried, like, oh, but what if I find someone better later? I'm going to guarantee you that you're going to.
Sure.
You're going to find someone better.
Right.
That's the issue, isn't that? Like, you're looking at it the wrong way. You're looking at it as like, oh, here's this vase that I'm going to get that I can put on my shelf and blah, 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 or some tool. It's not that way. You pick someone because they are going to be the canvas of which you guys build your life. You paint your life. And no one looks at the Mona Lisa and go, oh my God, that's an amazing piece of burlap.
Sure.
Like it's the painting that, and all you really need is someone who can carry the painting of your life together. Like, and there are people who won't be able to. It won't, they just won't be able to carry that. But like, once you find that person, like if you want a really simple life, and you find another person who wants a simple life, and here it is. Here's our painting. Dogs playing poker or whatever. And if you want the Mona Lisa, then you might need something a little more robust. But really, it comes down to what you really want. And I think most people don't understand what they want. So they list a bunch of things that people would say, oh, I looked at this list. All these things are good to want.
Mm.
But
Mhm.
like,
Do you think that's because they're afraid of examining that in themselves,
I don't. Maybe
or they just are too ignorant about it?
I don't think they think of relationships in those terms.
Mm.
Like I play this. I have the little thing on my app that I use all the time for women, and it works pretty well as a metric. It basically, you have $5. Here are 10 traits.
I hate this.
It's so great. It's so
I
great.
hate this. Bob always brings up. I freaking hate this thing.
How much does it come up?
And you have $5, and there are 10 traits, and like they're like like things like good looking and rich and faithful are $3, and
Mhm.
things like good in bed and sense of humor and like the 1, 2, blah blah blah. The trap that no one talks about it is that there are three $3 things: faithful, good looking, and rich. Those are traps. If you pick one of those things, then I feel like you need to do some work, because like what you're saying is like those three things, you need guarantees. You don't get guarantees in a relationship.
Mm.
Like, like that's not the way you should look at it. Like, like, oh, like, and people think, but faithful, that's a good one. That's like if you have to guarantee it, then it's not faithful.
Right.
That's
right.
conscription. I mean, I'm just saying, like, that's what that's so.
Yeah.
And like, no one needs good looking unless, person is perfect, but they're not good looking enough. That says something. It says something that, like, oh, the work probably needs to be a little more inward than, I could be wrong. Like, I'm not.
There it is.
But like, it just goes to show that people put these things out there because they're parroting it back rather than really examining what they want.
Or it's just like, as far as like, again, this thing of like being seen by other, the being perceived part is overriding it all. Of like
it's like
you needing it to be an attractive person for the sake of like how you relate to other people in your life.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
It's a form of virtue signaling.
Sure.
I think for me, like, I think both B and I were very much about, I guess we're very selfish this way, or like, I don't care what you think. Like, this is what I want. And I don't know if it's because I was raised a certain way or cognitive predisposition, but it was just like, oh, like, you don't live my life. Like, why should I try to impress you?
That takes up so much brain space, I feel like, for women, especially, where it's like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think? What is my family going to think? Like, what are my friends going to, I mean, we had a whole episode, right? Like, having a boyfriend is embarrassing. And the whole thing was like the perception of how to display your boyfriend on social media. And like, it's like, you have so many more eyes and,
Here's what it's really sad. Social media has done this, is that in the olden days, your happiness was not of primary concern. That was
survival was
yes, and only now when we have excess, like not just excess for the rich, but excess for like the poor. Like, no one's worried about getting scurvy,
right? Yeah,
So in that way, we have time to put happiness as a premium because survival is assumed. But like,
Sure.
But in order to have that, we have to let go of the other tools that may have allowed us to survive. So like a little bit less of that consensus is might be better for it to maximize happiness. Like, one of the things that I learned, like, I was raised in the 80s and 90s, and being an Asian male, in that time, like, the subtext was like, oh, you are a second-class citizen. You're okay. There are people who are treated worse than you, but you are not white. And so you don't get the privileges of being white. And a lot of Asian, doctrine is like, okay, well, that's the metric. Now we just maximize that. And so in that way, I really go like, oh, these scripts are not designed for me.
Right. Yeah.
Like, so I might have had a lot of reinforcement of going like, oh, well, like I've never was bound by those scripts because these scripts weren't for me. Like, and there are a bunch of Asian scripts that like are like, well, I'm not really from like Asia, mom. Like, these scripts don't really apply to me. I'm an American.
Yeah.
So from a very early age, I probably had to deal with developing my own script more than maybe someone who readily falls into other scripts.
You are also, as far as like your birth order, you're the youngest.
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest. Okay.
But like my mom's a little rebellious, and I have that same same streak in me. So in that way, inability to conform comes from her. So, so if she's upset about that, blame herself.
So I guess what I'm hearing through all of this is like the work that's not easy is like all internal. Like, I feel like that's been most of this conversation. Like, it's so funny. Like, I went into this thinking like, oh, like we're going to talk about how hard, like, an episode with Orna or something.
Well,
but it's like, I feel like most of what you're describing, it's like all the hard work is like internal.
I would say that your relationship, like especially in the marriage part or whatever, it's like working out. And so is working out hard? And he goes, it depends on where you're at. If you were at the beginning, yeah, it sucks. It sucks. If you are out of shape and but if you're in shape, it's hard, but it's not hard for you. And so I have kept up. I haven't kept up with lifting weights or running or blah, 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 but I've kept up with the work of relationship. I'm the one who really goes in and goes, oh, she probably needs to laugh right now. So I'm going to go make her laugh or blah, blah. Like I keep the play in our relationship. Partly because it's easy for me, partly because who I am, but partly because I go like, oh, I want to be in a relationship where I like the person who I'm with.
Yeah.
You can it's always good to love the person who you're with, but loving and liking are not the same thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so I've worked very hard to make sure that we stay in like with each other. But I think if people understood that relationships were not things to be bought.
Yeah.
Like person in a typical masculine mode. When they buy a car and they're a car person, they will spend time and money for the process, So it's not that those people can't shift into process mode thinking. But for some reason, a lot of times people go like, oh, I find the person I'm going to marry. And in the masculine mode, they go, and now don't change ever. I've done this part. Your contract to me is you never change and I'm done. The other contract is just because a woman, marries a guy doesn't give her the right to go, oh, now I can tailor you the same way that I tailor the house or my dresses or because most men don't ask the person to change. What happens is they go, oh, well, okay, blah, blah, blah. You're not changing. You're not changing. You're not changing. Okay. Now I cheat on you. Now we're getting divorced. That's a common thing. But to ask to change is not something in their vocabulary. Whereas I feel like a lot of people in the feminine mode will often say things like, oh, we're married now. My standard is here high and your standard is low. It is unfair for me to ask you to come to my standards. So let's meet halfway. And for whatever reason, masculine mode people resist. And you think oh, they're just being unreasonable, blah, blah. But deep down inside, they know something and they don't know how to express it. So what will happen is fight. And eventually they will either divorce or whatever, or the masculine mode person yields. And when they yield, then the feminine mode person goes, great. Now we know that you're capable of this. The new metric is halfway between.
Sure.
Right.
And ultimately, people don't like being changed. Most people don't want to be changed by an outside force. That they feel like a lack of agency. But if I could find a methodology of framing this, that I go, oh, I'm doing something that I would normally do. And it's just that I haven't seen the map of how to go do it. The trap that people have is they think that their partner thinks the same way they do.
Yeah.
And it's not the case. They think similar to you, but when you assume that they think the same as you and there's disagreement, the only way that you can make sense of that is by saying, oh, this person has a different set of agendas than I do. It erodes trust, basically. Not trust in the person necessarily, but trust in the trust that you've put into the system. You start doubting the system.
Right. I was just about to say, that can bring up a lot of fear. Oh, wow, maybe we don't align on.
But if you go in with the idea of oh, we are different people and we think differently, and it just happens that we align on a lot of things, then what you can go in with is a perspective of curiosity. It's,
Yeah. But I mean, to that, it's curiosity, gets stifled with the ego and pride and,
I mean, I think this generation who is dating now have a lot more information than I ever did. I grew up in an age where no cell phone, pager, and by the time I was married, cell phone.
Yeah.
So the information was not really there, good or bad. So brain moved at a pace that was humanly manageable. Now you're moving at AI level speeds, and most people can't keep up with that, especially if they're still developing how they feel about themselves. There's a double whammy of so much information and emotional stuntedness that makes it hard for people to connect. And I personally don't see why. Like, like I mean, I understand the mechanics of why, but like, I feel like people are lonelier than ever. Like, you would think that they would get into more relationships.
I mean, that's our whole show, like
I know,
trying to
like,
figure this out.
Yeah, no, because it seems like it's just a matter of like, you know what it is? If I had to really boil it down, it's like people are still afraid of being ostracized, and people are not willing to do the work of like thinking about what they truly want. Like, and ultimately, that's what relationships are. They're about being an adult. Until you can see what you are or like develop what you are, you're not really an adult, and you never really get to be in a relationship. Does that make sense?
An adult being like someone who
Like,
can see others more clearly, and by able to do that, they see themselves more
like
clearly,
I,
or
I would say, like, like we are all different levels of awake in various different areas. Some people
yeah.
are more woke in one area versus another. I think one place that people spend a lot of time trying to get woken is this idea of self-realization. Like, there are many a guru who could tell you how to do it, blah, blah, blah. But really, if you just sit, just like do some metacognition and just think about how you're thinking, and then go like, does that make sense to what I really believe? And then you can like kind of self-edit your programming and or at least see, oh, this is what I believe. Like, I made a conscious choice to go, I'm not going to date my mom anymore. And it's working out. I think everyone, like, I feel really, I use the term love privilege. I feel like I have had a lot of love privilege in my life. And when I look around, I go like, oh, here are these people who are love deficient. I go like, that is really tragic to me, because it's not really that hard. It's just that people are trying to make things so perfect. But like, imperfect is where you start from. You never start from perfect.
Well, Paul, thank you so much. It was so lovely to have you on our
Thank you.
show.
I'm really honored. Like, I'm I find myself often lost between the distance.
Were you about to say that you often find yourself lost in the space between Venus and Mars?
Oh my God, you read my mind. Are we connected?
Yes, uncle.
Yes, uncle.
Full circle.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Like, we're so honored to have you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah. And so that was this week's episode. And we will be back in another 2 weeks with another installment of our show. And thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Our show is made by us, Crystal and Jesse Rojas. Our producer is the lovely Marianne Rojas. Our composer and mixer extraordinaire is Rosalind Wong, and all of our art is carefully handcrafted by Jacob Bankoff. If you haven't already, make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. You can find us there under @Venus and Mars Pod. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.